A new decade of darkness for Canada's military. I'm Brian Lilley with the Rebel.media. Between giving Omar Khadr $10.5 million and throwing 5 service members under the bus for walking through a public park and being polite while a Native protest was going on, I think we're headed into a new decade of darkness for the Canadian military. And that term, decade of darkness, that refers to the last time that Liberals were in charge. Look, the Canadian forces, be it the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, they're all used to being underfunded regardless of who was in power. Even under the Conservatives, they were underfunded. But at least then they were respected. Not anymore. Justin Trudeau and his Liberals, let's face it, they have little use for the military other than as a peacekeeping tool to get the UN Security Council seat they so desperately seek. Which is why in the same week that we're seeing the government leak information about a $10.5 million settlement with admitted and convicted terrorist Omar Khadr, we're also seeing them denounce 5 members of the military for walking into a park on Canada Day and engaging with a Native protest that was severely lacking in Natives and was actually all about denouncing Canada as a racist colonialist power. Now, my guess is that all of this is just going to make military morale plummet. Can you imagine being a Canadian veteran or the family of one of our fallen from Afghanistan and hearing that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is going to apologize in your name to that little terrorist Omar Khadr and then pay him $10.5 million, while families of the fallen, they get a one-time payout of $360,000. It's unreal, it's outrageous, it's demoralizing. And then, of course, there's this incident that's caught an awful lot of national media attention, even if most of what the media is saying is misrepresenting what actually happened. You've heard that we've got 5 racist, white supremacist members of the military and members of a group called the Proud Boys who disrupted an Indigenous religious ceremony. Some people even think they were violent doing it. Is that the truth? Is any of that accurate at all? Well, I'll be honest, I don't know these men. I've never met them. I've never spoken to them. But here's what I do know. 5 of the men that walked in the park have a military connection. 2 of them are Métis, 1 is gay. Did they disrupt an Indigenous religious ceremony? No. They walked into a public park on Canada Day carrying the old flag, the one that we flew up until 1965, the one we carried into 2 world wars, into Korea, and yes, even into those first peacekeeping missions. They attempted to listen to what was going on and were instead confronted by protesters, most of whom were not Native. What they were doing was holding an anti-Canada Day event. This was not some Indigenous ceremony, religious or otherwise. This was a political protest. CBC's original coverage of the incident, based mainly off of interviews with the protesters themselves, likely got it right. Check out the headline from Canada Day. This was posted at 6:29 p.m. local time. Cornwallis protest held amid Canada Day celebrations. Dozens of people gathered to protest genocide in front of Halifax's Edward Cornwallis statue. They were there to protest Edward Cornwallis, the founder of Halifax, because, well, they said he put a bounty on the scalps of Mi'kmaq people. What they'll never tell you is that the Mi'kmaqs and the Acadians, who were already living there, opposed Halifax being settled. They joined together to launch raids that killed many people. It's called Father Latour's War. It's part of history. You can look it up. Neither side is all innocent here. But they were holding their protest. They had stickers on the statue of Cornwallis saying, "Fuck Canada." They had an upside-down Canadian flag saying, "Decolonize." And in walked these men. In the original article, CBC called it a counter-protest. But 2 days later, the new headline and narrative was this was some kind of racist anti-Native protest, interrupting an Indigenous ceremony. Now, unlike most people commenting on this, I've watched all the videos that I can find on this. The raw, unedited videos of what happened, and I'm still trying to figure out what these men did that was so wrong. They didn't just interrupt other than walk through the park trying to listen, and, well, for that, the protesters, the ones saying "fuck Canada" and "decolonize," they got pretty aggressive. At one point, one of the protesters who's, trying to stop them from watching what's happening in a public park tells one of the Proud Boys he better watch it or it's going to turn into a micro or macro aggression.
Very close.
Get out.
You're very close.
I am.
You want
me to turn it into a macroaggression? Do you want to find out?
Now, for the most part, nothing happens. It's a confrontational event, though that's mostly driven by the protesters, including telling the Proud Boys they have to take down their flag.
One of the ways that you can be respectful of this ceremony is by not displaying that flag.
I can't hear the ceremony.
You need to take the flag. But
You can ask the flag down. Stop your yapping and start listening. That's what you're saying.
I don't see you. I want to listen
it's
to
not
the
going to
ceremony.
start again until
And of course, there's a lot of yapping about how the park they're in, that's not Halifax, it's not Nova Scotia or even Canada. It's Mi'kmaq territory.
It was Mi'kmaq territory.
It is Mi'kmaq territory.
Was. This is now Canada.
It is Mi'kmaq
This is
territory.
Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Canada has an agreement with the Mi'kmaq.
It's unceded
Nation is
Mi'kmaq
recognized.
territory. It's unceded Mi'kmaq territory.
Okay, so Canada doesn't exist?
It's unceded Mi'kmaq.
Do you have a Medicare
territory.
card?
Pardon?
Do you have a Medicare card?
Pardon?
Do you have a Medicare card?
Yes.
Okay, so you recognize Canada.
Do not answer the questions of those who are disrespected with the
It's
flag.
unceded territory.
Yeah,
They're
so
allowed to fly the Mi'kmaq flag, but I can't fly mine.
Eventually realizing that nothing's happening, the guys walk out of the park the same way they walked in. Unceremoniously, no beating of drums, no yelling, and yet for this the military brass is apologizing, including Rear Admiral John Newton.
I'll stand here in front of you and apologize to the Aboriginal community, to the any community, the whole public community that feels offended by the actions of fellow Canadians who wear the uniform.
What actions? What's so offensive? Walking into a park, telling people they're in Canada, that they're in Halifax, standing up for Canada in a completely non-confrontational way on Canada Day, of all days? Those actions, that's what you're apologizing for? That seems to be it. Defense Minister Harjit Sajjan has joined in denouncing these men, posting on his Facebook page. On Canada Day, I was made aware of the actions of a handful of members of the Canadian Armed Forces in Halifax. I want to be clear, this kind of behavior is not tolerated in the Canadian Armed Forces. He apologizes to the Mi'kmaqs of Halifax. He apologizes to Chief Grizzly Mama, a woman from BC that claims to be Aboriginal and moved to Halifax. Now, whatever she is, I doubt she's a chief, and she definitely isn't Mi'kmaq. Now, he also denounced the men, though. He denounced the men that he effectively commands for doing what? Nothing that I can tell. Of course, so did the Chief of the Defense Staff, General John Vance, who told Aboriginal People's Television Network what happened in Halifax over the weekend is deplorable, and Canadians should rest assured my senior leadership is seized with the matter. This is in a statement he released on Tuesday. He added, the members involved will be removed from training and duties while we conduct an investigation and review the circumstances. Their future in the military is certainly in doubt. Great, you might kick them out. You might make them lose their jobs. For what? Again, I don't know these men. All I can go on is the evidence before me, evidence presented not by these men, but by their accusers. And I don't see a crime or deplorable actions. If walking into a park and engaging in respectful discussion is now a deplorable act, then good luck getting people to sign up for the military and offer to put their lives on the line, General Vance. Have you thought about that? I'm well aware of the Queen's regulations and orders and other aspects of the military rules, regulations, and laws that curtail your ability to speak freely when you are an active member. But watch this video and show me where these men violated those rules. That's my challenge to General Vance, to Harjit Sajjan, to Rear Admiral John Newton, to everyone. Watch the full, non-eventful 8 minutes of video and tell me where they crossed the line. Because what I see is that we are capitulating to radicals that don't even want to recognize that Canada exists while using all the resources and benefits of the state to denounce it and try and rip it apart. It's been a shameful few days for Canada's military brass and the political leadership that guide them. But I'm going to ask you to do more than complain. What I want you to do is help these men keep their jobs. I'm going to ask you to sign the petition to save their jobs, to help these 5 servicemen out. You can do that at SaveThe5.com. That's SaveThe5.com. Don't let these radicals run Canada. Stand up, let your voice be heard. Go now, SaveThe5.com, sign the petition, and then share it on social media. If you're tired of radicals running the country and you want to hear more, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page. Click here to subscribe. And if you haven't subscribed to Rebel Canada, make sure you do that as well.